Te whare pāremata. Tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa.
I call the Honourable Member Reno Tirakatni. Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe. Ka titi hei wā mauri ora ki te whai au ki te ao mārama. Ngai Tuhoe, tēnā koutou. Nau mai, hara mai, ki te whare pārama, ki te ana o ngā raiona, e takatū nei. Nau mai, piki mai, i ngā wawata, ki te whakatuktuki i ngā wawata o rātou mā. Tēnā koutou, e aku rangatira, huri no e te whare tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Mr. Speaker, I stand wholeheartedly in support of this bill. I am honoured to be able to make a contribution in these debates. As the member for Te Taitonga, Te Waipounamu, I have not had the privilege yet of going into Tuhoe country, but I'm very much looking forward to that when I go travelling through with our select committee. Sir, we've heard many contributions at this historic occasion, sir. And I would like to acknowledge my colleague, Matua, Honourable Shane Jones, because he talked about the history of Tuhoe, and it has been well documented by Pākehā and Māori over the past 100 years or so. But the Tuhoe struggle is still unknown to all New Zealanders, sir. And that's a sad occurrence, and that's why it's really important that we can try and do our best to project and to inform all of Aotearoa New Zealand on the importance of the history of this people and the history and the atrocities which they have gone through. But sir, I'll just, referring to my notes, my colleagues from around the House have referred to the terrible scorched earth policies, the raids, and various other histories. But sir, I'd like to take this opportunity in my contribution to talk about the history, one story of many hundreds of stories that make up the history of the Ngai Tuhoe people. And this story, sir, concerns, I think to me it sums up a whole lot of the stories to me. Of Crown actions which we've heard, but this story concerns the dodgy land deals by Pākehā acting in their private capacity, and of subsequent governments who failed to take action to prevent Tuhoe being alienated from their lands. And sir, I'd like to acknowledge Professor Emeritus of History at Auckland University, Dame Judith Binney, who is a close friend of the Tuhoe people, and whose kōrero in Stories Without End I acknowledge today. Because this story, sir, it actually has a bit of an association with Te Waipounamu, and so that's why it struck out to me. So the actual central character of the story, sir, is one Hare Rauparaha, native land court interpreter who lived among the Aroa, Tuhoe, Ngāti Awa peoples of the central North Island Bay of Plenty region at the time Te Kōti was moved across the island. And he was a mate of Te Kōti's and son of the famous warrior Te Rauparaha of Ngāti Toa Rangatira. He ingratiated himself among the whānau of Ngāti Haka and Pātihiohio by marrying a daughter of the chief. And Hare Rauparaha ultimately defrauded the community he lived in of 7,000 acres of land by manipulation, deceit and fraud. Now, Mr. Speaker, these traits are hardly becoming of the son of the great fighting chief as Te Rauparaha, composer of our national haka. And sir, they are not. They are the actions of a European male born to immigrant British parents in Nelson in 1842 by the name of Harry Roberts Burt. Harry Burt, who would have grown up in the New Zealand Company settlement of Nelson, would have been raised on the stories of Te Rauparaha and the conquering Ngāti Toa and the allies of Ngāti Toa and my whanaunas of Ngāti Rārua, Te Atiawa, who raided and conquered Tauihu in the 1820s. And they had the mana in that area. So young Harry, he grew up with the Pā kids, and he became part of those lucky first generation Pākehā kids that spoke reo Māori. He understood Māori ways in a manner that his parents didn't understand, and armed with this knowledge, Harry Burt became an obvious choice as a native land court interpreter. And he had a nice English wife, and he had some children. But when Harry hit the road for mahi, he turned into Hare Rauparaha, native land court interpreter and illegitimate son of Te Rauparaha. Quite a transformation. Not quite as a superhero, he turned into a supervillain. But Mr. Speaker, the story of the loss of mana and land of Ngāti Haka and Tuhoe, situated in the Rangitaiki River Valley at Tuhoe, is very complex as it is egregious. And as complex as the story of Tuhoe is, it is another example of the lengths that Europeans went to accrue land illegally. Now, I will try as best to convey this to the House, but the basic chronology of the loss of Tuhoe goes like this. So Tuhoe sat within the land block known as Waiōhau, and through deception and fraud, Hare found a couple of blokes, and he put, there was a partition that came up, and he managed to have the 14,000 acre block partitioned into 2 equal portions. And Waiōhau 1B was put into the name of these 2 blokes. And as soon as they got the title, they walked out of the court, and the judge and Hare went out of the courtroom and witnessed the sale of that 7,000 acres to Hare's wife. And sir, that was, every time I hear these stories, it just makes me I'm so shocked and almost disgusted at the fraud that went on. And anyway, the land was placed into Bert's wife's name. There was an inquiry. The people rightly complained. They had the grievance investigated. But due to the incompetencies of those inquiries, the title stayed in the name of Bert's wife. Now, a caveat was placed upon the land, and the Crown knew the people of Tuhoe had been swindled. But the caveat was lifted, and Bert's wife became protected, and she was guaranteed title because she had acquired clear title regardless of whether it had been obtained by fraud or not. Now, sir, the misery of the people of Ngāti Haka and Tuhoe, that misery continued when they were not permitted to remove their meeting house, as well as a native school that the people of their community had built on that land. And sir, the government, in its shame, had to purchase the whare tupuna, and the hapu had to break the house down in parts, and with a horse and cart removed their whare and had to take it to much poorer lands north in the original Waiōhau block. Now, Mr. Speaker, the pain of that transaction started in 1878 and ended in 1906. So for nearly 30 years, Tuhoe, Ngāti Haka, Tuhoe tried to use the law to retain their lands, but to no avail. And the admittance of the Crown that Tuhoe had been part of a terrible fraud and deception, well, that was of little comfort to them. The lengths to which Harry Roberts Burt went to defraud the families of Tuhoe will go down as one of the most reprehensible acts visited upon Tuhoe. There's much I haven't shared with this House out of respect for Tuhoe and Dame Judith Binney. Suffice to say, what I have shared will in some way help explain why Tuhoe have had very little to do with successive governments. If I could leave these words of the judge who presided over that case regarding Tuhoe, and he said, "I regret the hardship to the defendants. That they have suffered a grievous wrong is, in my opinion, plain. It is doubly hard that this wrong should have resulted from a miscarriage which certainly ought to have been avoided in the very court which was specially charged with the duty of protecting them in such matters. The plaintiff is, of course, blameless in the matter. So, Mr. Speaker, once again, this was just one story of these illustrious people of Tuhoe. I'd like to acknowledge them once again, the hapu of Ngāti Haka and Patuhiohio, and their story of Tuhoe and their land at Waiōhau. And once again, I acknowledge the work of Dame Judith Binney and her book, Stories Without End. Because, sir, there are stories without end, but this is a new story. This is a new story for Ngai Tuhoe, and I'm pleased to be here talking in support of this bill. I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues and under our chair, Tuhoe, and we will speedily bring this bill through the House. And, sir, I commend this bill. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
I call the honourable member.